Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast. This is a podcast for highly sensitive people, people that have high intuition and are just in tune with themselves and the outer world. Come and listen to multiple different high spectrum subjects and just peek behind the curtain. But I warn you, once you peek behind the curtain, you can never go back. Have fun. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Wellness Amazon podcast. Today, guest speaker is my husband because our subject today is being married to an HSP, and this can be 2 HSPs and this could be only 1 HSP and the other one's not, and that's our scenario where he is not a highly sensitive person and I am. So we're going to talk about how that works. And the roles don't necessarily have to be that the female is the HSP. They can be both. I think this is more common, but it doesn't mean that it always have to be like that. And because he is very submerged, obviously, in that subject, who to better invite anyone but you and talk about our scenario and how that all progressed over time, and how this also is something that, because I talked in our first episode about how I not too long ago learned all about that, and it really opened up another world for me and made things a lot easier. And I'm sure that also had a big impact on our relationship because now I have the words and I can express things a little bit better than I used to be. Hey, DJ.
Hey, well, thanks for having me, baby.
Yeah, anytime. So the thing I want to quickly announce is, so my husband is also a veteran. You deployed twice, and I'm sure that also is going to come when we talk about different scenarios. This is going to, I've already talked about this a little bit before, how that will come up when we talk about how attentive we are in certain things and what's important to you to be attentive in a situation and what's important to me to be that I am attentive to very, very other things. Right now, he's a civilian. He's not in the military anymore. He is an engineer, and he is also on the road a lot. And we've had some challenges with that where you were doing other jobs with other companies and you were gone a lot, like a lot, which then I had to teach myself almost other skills because I had to do like everything else, and the whole like overstimulation thing was a little bit more extreme than it is now for us, because now we're in a much blessed state, I would almost say, where you're home a little bit more, just a little bit more of a regular schedule.
Yep.
Saying that out loud while you were just coming home from being on the road. So it still happens, but it's not as bad anymore as it used to be. Do you want to say a little bit about how you were describing yourself in that term? Because we sometimes talk about how your what is it called? Like these personality tests you've had to do before for work and things, and what your strong skills are and what your least strong skills are.
Yeah, so I work for a company where we had to take a personality test to see, strengths and weaknesses. And my number one was woo, winning others over, which essentially means that, I can walk into a room with 20 strangers, be very comfortable about it, and pretty much win them over and be able to have conversations with them. And just like they were my best friend that I've known for years. I guess she's leaning toward my least one, which is empathy. It's not that I don't have empathy for people. It's that I don't have empathy for, can I say, stupid situations that people put themselves in. I don't care what people think about me. I can't control people's feelings toward me. That being said, I don't go out of my way to be jerks to people and make them not like me.
Mm.
But if somebody were to come up to me and be like, oh, well, the shirt you're wearing offends me, I'm going to tell them to stop staring at my shirt because it
Mm-hmm.
offends me that you're staring at me like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not going to bother me one way or the other.
Yeah.
Now, if I said something to somebody and they're like, hey, I didn't really appreciate how you said that or the tone you said it, I might try to clarify, hey, my apologies, was not my intention.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if I don't know that person, if that person's not part of my life, I don't care what they think of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It reminds me of the overthinking episode from last week where we talked about giving a person a number if it's someone where or if that person is included in a situation where it makes you overthink about that over and over again. I think too what's important is because I remember when you did these multiple tests and they all always came up with the same results, that you do have empathy, but you are someone who isn't automatically in that. That's not your default. You can be
yes,
empathetic, but you do it mindfully.
yes,
Because if someone tells you about a bad situation that you can put yourself in, I can see you go, horrific, this is awful, I don't know what I would do. That's empathy. You're trying to be in that person's shoes and feel what they feel, and you feel, and now you have, um, I think it's always funny how, at least I always learned from others, that empathy is more important than sympathy. And yes, it is, but I do not think that sympathy should have a bad rep. I think that's, I can be sympathetic about your situation too. And you can do that, but it's not your default setting where.
I think for me, sympathy is if it's a situation that you had no control over.
Mhm.
Okay, I can be sympathetic for you. If it's a situation where you made a bad choice and now you have to reap the benefits of that choice, good or bad, I don't have empathy for you. If you show up to work late every single day
Mm.
and you wind up getting fired, I don't have sympathy for you. Zero. If you're in a car crash and now you can't work because you were in a car crash at no fault of yours, I have sympathy for you.
Mhm.
So I would agree with that where, but there's certain situations
Sure.
where sympathy is good, but I think a lot of people want it even when it's not justified, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think there's pity,
Hmm.
where it's a little different than sympathy. The other thing is too, where I was going to is that some of us are, that empathy thing is in like a default mode where I cannot turn that off. I always feel what other people feel. So it's almost like, I don't even think empathy is a right word for it, just because it's always there. It is, again, that also that being very attentive and absorbing of other people's energy that they are taking off or expelling. I don't know how to say that. Um, so when you are so different than me, sometimes, and this is the funny thing, I think that an HSP being married to a non-HSP is really, really beneficial. Um, and this is just a personal for me thing. I don't know how other people feel about that, because you can ground me back into, especially when I spiral about that, or I am non-capable anymore to differentiate between other people's feelings and my feelings. I can be in someone else's feelings, but then I also have to come back out of that and not. Sometimes it gets tangled up and it gets weird, and I get emotional and sad or depressed or whatever the right term would be. And then sometimes, or actually now all the time, I try to talk to you because I know that you have that incredible ability to be so, so objective from the outside, and you just see the picture. You do see the gray areas. I'm not saying you just see black and white, but you can say, okay, this is not yours. This is not you. This is sad, and this is, we can feel sad, and then we need to come back to reality, and you need to be not that you say those terms, but what I hear is, you need to be in your body, you need to be in your mind. You need to have like a distance from that. Um, so that's very beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think too, though. I know when we first met and got married, and early on in the relationship, um, you being open about HSP
Mm,
helps me understand it more because I don't understand it.
mm,
Even when you explain it to me, I can't understand it because I don't feel that way.
because you're not
I don't
experiencing it.
experience it. To me, it's like, okay, this person thinks my beard is disgusting. I don't care,
Mm,
right? I like it. I don't care. And I forget about it. I don't I don't dwell on it. Man, that guy's, I, lo- I as soon as he walks away, I forgot his name. I forgot everything about him. I'm serious. I don't care.
yeah.
So it's hard for me to understand it. And I think that's where when you have two people, one's an HSP and one's not, they have to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
They have to. They have to understand because, if you wouldn't have done that to me and told me how you feel and explained all this to me, I would have just been like, oh well, it's just whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I would have just passed it off as, whatever. You being you. Oh, it's just her just going through one of her moods and
Mm-hmm.
not understanding it. But since you were honest with me and we have had conversations about it,
Mm-hmm.
that helped me understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I might not help me get it. I might not understand it,
Mm-hmm.
but I understand it for you. That is
Yeah.
your feelings.
Yeah. I remember before I even understood myself and before I even knew that was a thing, I remember, and you, again, elephant brain, you might not. You had an old army buddy come to Florida and they wanted to go out to eat with us. And there was something going on where I think either he canceled last minute or we just met for dinner and you wanted to do all the other things and they're like, no. And he explained it to you and he said, my wife is, he never said HSP, but he said, my wife is easily overwhelmed and my wife has a little bit of social anxiety going on. It would be better if we would just leave it at that. And you told me that. And I thought, that is amazing. First of all, he's protecting her. He knows what's going on. He's not, obviously they're not, that's not a negative thing for them, but he is making sure that, because they were on vacation here,
Hmm.
that they are still having a good vacation and she is not constantly getting overwhelmed with her, let's just say her personality, because I don't want to say that that's anything else. It's just we are the way we are. And that was such a key moment for me because I thought if they are on a level where they understand each other that way, and she is obviously not labeling herself in a negative way, but they're communicating and they can take care of each other, that's amazing. And now looking back, I think first of all, that opened a door for me in a lot of ways to be the same way with you, to say, hey, listen, I
Exactly. Yep.
need you to respect that because I don't want to come home after these whatever huge gatherings and then be completely depleted for 2 days. I need to recover and have freaking rehab time.
Yeah.
But also I needed to explain to you how this is all going on. And social media can be a curse, but sometimes there's people that just really are great in finding the words for you, even if you don't have them to, like the word overstimulated. I never even thought about that. Even though now it's such a normal word to use, but 10 years from now, 10 years ago, it was not really. And it is just such a great thing to have. But also, it's a natural thing because, okay, great example. I always take the example of a party, and I think either in the first or second episode, I was talking a little bit about the difference between you and I. When we go out to eat somewhere and I am at the table before you, I automatically look which chair can face all the entryways. That's where DJ needs to sit. And I will tell other people when they want to sit there, even if it's people that we barely know, you cannot sit there. My husband has to sit there.
Yeah.
And when they ask why, I know that you're okay with me being open. I will say he is just more comfortable sitting there when he can see all the entryways.
Well, that goes back to the whole, going back to, my buddy that we met, him and his wife communicating and her telling him that. Because other situations where you go out with your friends, and this has happened to us, where it's like, hey, we go out to dinner, hey, you want to go grab a drink? And no, yeah, no, my wife's she's antisocial. She doesn't, and he's blaming, or even the wife blaming the husband, where it's a blame. I want to, but they don't. Where that causes hostility in a relationship, So if you're not communicating, you're like, oh, she's just, he or she, it doesn't matter, is just in one of their moods. They don't want to go out. They don't want to do this. Well, then now you're putting the spotlight on them as if they're doing something wrong. What he did was and I learned from that too, by the way, because this was a while back. I really didn't know much either. And that got me thinking too, like, okay, he's not putting the blame on anybody. It's a mutual thing. He's not saying like, hey, I don't want to hang out with you guys, because we hadn't seen each other. I was like over 10 years since we saw him last, somewhere around there. But and
more like 5.
Was it 5?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, elephant brain, worm brain. um But once she started, they came by again and visited, and we spent more time with them and more time. So since she wasn't pressured that first time, it made in the future easier for her to spend more time with us and get to know her a little bit better. So 100. If you don't communicate, and also don't blame the other person. It's not their fault that they have this HSP. It's not their fault. But when you blame them and humiliate them, my wife being my wife, she's just antisocial, or my husband just being a jerk and doesn't like people, that that also puts a toll on them, because now they're not going to want to communicate with you because they feel like, okay, I can't tell you my true feelings,
right?
Because that's a burden to them.
Yes.
And it should never be that way.
And not only, I wanna clarify something that you said. Not only is it not their fault, and I'm using air quotes if you're not seeing the video, it's not a bad thing.
No.
It's not like some weird disease or whatever, it's just I think it's a superpower. It's a great thing to have, Is it always comfortable? No. But it's not some weird thing that you have. And again, HSPs can be men and women. Ever female bodies apparently have different hearing, different eyesight. Like, we have different skills just because of the whole Homo sapiens thing, how we're made. We're supposed to be the nurturer and
survival instincts,
find some berries or whatnot. Yep. Where the guys are supposed to go hunt, which they need different skills, they need different hearing, they need different sights. So a lot of times for female HSPs, it can be even more difficult in a loud environment like a restaurant. I have this all the time. Do you remember when I have those earplugs? So I have these ear things that go, they look like earplugs, but they just help you to focus more on the close up conversation, because the female hearing is wide ranged, where the male hearing is tunnel vision almost.
Well, yeah, because,
and not that we're visualing, it's not vision, but it's just more focused on the immediate thing, because you need to hear the slightest noises when you hunt, versus a female has that wide hearing, so she hears children in the distance, and the baby screaming.
Yep.
So when I'm in a restaurant, I can hear, if I wanted to, 15 conversations. The silverware, the waiters, if there's TVs everywhere, and I hate that. In almost every American restaurant, there's TV somewhere.
I think too, though,
it's too much.
I think too, though, that goes back to the whole where men have, and I'm using air quotes now too, selective hearing. And it's kind of the running joke. And okay, yeah, we might not hear everything, but that doesn't mean we have selective hearing, like she just said. our ears focus on different things.
Mm-hmm.
So, not to make excuses, guys, I'm not trying to give you a pass to where you can sit here and say, hey, it's genetics. I just can't hear my wife. That's not what I'm saying. But like she said, it's scientifically proven that the hearing for men and women are different. And when I learned that, once again, me being me, I kind of joked and said, well, see, it's not my fault. It's just my genes. I can't control my hearing, what I can and can't hear. But all jokes aside, that is something that, um, people do need to understand a little bit more. It is different.
Yeah. You know my hearing.
Mm-hmm.
You always say, how did you hear that? I joke all the time about my light sleep and that I can hear a raccoon in the neighbor's yard fart, and I really can't, I think. But I just hear everything. And then, if the hearing is so sensitive, which a lot of HSPs have very, very, very sensitive hearing, um, it, that in itself is an overstimuli now. It's just totally overwhelmed, and that is just one of my senses. And I have all the other ones that are going on overdrive. So, but anyway, when you go into a restaurant, you look at the escape routes and the entrances where somebody can come in, and that totally, I have no clue. This is none of my problems right now, because I have 99 other problems.
Yeah, I mean, I look at, like you said, I might not give you the exact number of people in the restaurants, but I'll give you a pretty dang close guesstimate of how many people are there.
And I don't think you even have to do that consciously anymore. I think you do that subconsciously by now. It's just automatic. Yeah. Which is an impressive skill, and it's a tactical skill. It's something that I think also the military has a big part in that you do that. I don't know if you did that when you were 19, probably not.
I don't know.
But I mean, I don't know. If you have a husband who's never in the military and who does that, please let me know. Actually, I know someone who does that who was never in the military. So I think it might just be
I think it goes back to that hunter gathering, too, because, when we go on road trips, I will see an animal on the side of the road before anybody else in the car does. And it can be pitch black at night, and I'm like, there's a deer, there's a moose, there's a gator, there's this, there's that. I spot them quickly.
Yeah.
So once again, I think that's the difference in our eyesights. I can see stuff differently than you. I focus on things differently than you. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing where you have two people that can do two different things. That's what makes it work. You don't want to be able to, us both being able to see the same thing and not being able to see the same thing, because then we'd be running into walls.
Yeah, our daughter was just mad at you the other day for calling Scion turquoise.
Turquoise.
You said it's the same thing. We're all like, no, it's not. But again, that's a female eyesight thing. No, it's not. We see more colors where you over categorize things. And but again, if you see so many more colors, that also is stimulating your eyesight when you go, where you can be like, yeah, whatever, it's red, move on.
Well, I think too, going back to the hunter gathering, back then the women went and picked berries. If you had a turquoise and what was the other one? Scion berry, and the turquoise is poisonous and the scion is not poisonous, you would have to know the difference. The guys would all just be dead because we would eat all of them. Yeah. So I think too, with being that with the hunter gatherers, where the females were the natural gatherers, you guys went and picked berries. Yeah. So red and magenta are basically the same thing to me. Yeah. But that, hey, this one's brighter than the other, and the bright one's poisonous.
Yeah. This one's fuchsia. Yeah.
So, like I said, guys would just eat whatever, and we'd just fall over dead from berry poisoning, where, the female eyes would be like, nope, that's poisonous, don't touch it. Yeah. So.
And I think also to go, by the way, this might be a word that I am pronouncing totally wrong, because I'm trying to remember how we say that in German. Sion is what we say. I just know because I think everybody knows that color, because it's the one alarm you get when the printer is empty, because that's the blue that's in the printer. And I think we all have some printer PTSD at this point. Anyway, total side note. I think going back to communication, and how to support each other. I do believe that this caused issues in the beginning when I didn't even know what it was. It was always there. And for some reason, I think when you're getting older, it can get a little bit more distinct. Like for me, it is now I know that, and I don't know, maybe it was the same level when I was younger. I just thought it was normal to be so depleted after an outing, but I was more of an extroverted introvert when I was younger because I didn't miss a party in my early 20s, and it was fine. But with time and experiences and going through motions and also then remembering everything and how people are feeling and trying to figure people out, it gets a little bit more intense. And you are a very, very social butterfly. You love to be around people. And I think it makes you happy in the sense of you have fun. It's fun for you, and it's mostly just fun. And for me, it's always like there's fun, and then there's the burden with it that comes with it.
Well, I think too that goes back to with me, I can go into a room with 20 people that I have no relationship with.
Yeah,
When I leave that room, I will not be able to remember one person's name.
yeah,
Not one. And I don't care. It's not
yeah,
going to bother me. Where if you go into a room with 20 people you don't know, when you leave, you're like, oh, we had Jack and Stacy, and your brain's going to be like, I have to remember these people,
yeah.
even though you'll never see them again.
It's not, no, it's not that I have to. It's just a default thing because my brain, I have a photographic memory.
Mhm.
So my brain attaches the person not only to their name, but to their story and how many children they have. And everything I found out of that person and the way they were talking to me. Did they have a lisp? Did they have an accent? Did they move their mouth a certain way when they talked? All of these things, they just stick. They stick, and they will stick for 30 years because I will still remember this. I still today remember that 25 years ago, person XY told me that my favorite color is purple, and I've never seen them anymore. But I just remember those things just because I don't know why my brain decides to just think that's important, but it's important. So I remember, and which also is actually in the longer run a great skill because people feel very special when you remember something about them.
Yep.
I do when somebody remembers something about me. Because my name is so hard for people to remember, I already feel special when someone remembers my name correctly. Um, but also, again, it's because you can be in the moment and then at the end dump all of that information.
Mhm.
You're like, you go out of that party, you are, okay, what do we do next? There's space. There's space for new.
Mhm.
Where I'm like, the platform is overloaded. It is full. We cannot put any more information in here. We need 2 days to process all of this.
I think one of the biggest examples is, I'll talk to a buddy of mine, or we'll go out for a beer or whatever, and I come home. And let's say I was gone for 2 hours, and it was a 15-minute drive there. So, hour and a half, we were hanging out together. I'll come home, and she'll say, hey, how was it? It was fun. What did you guys talk about? It was fun. And it's not that I don't care about that person. It's just we had a conversation. He's going to go home, probably say the same thing to his wife. It's always funny when I say, hey, so-and-so's pregnant. Oh my gosh, boy or girl? So-and-so's pregnant. When's the due date? So-and-so's pregnant. The information for me, like, oh, boy or girl, doesn't matter. They're pregnant. Congratulations. It's awesome. Doesn't matter to me if it's a boy or girl. Doesn't matter when the due date is. Doesn't matter anything. None of that matters to me. I know it matters to you, though. And so I think that's one thing, too, where when you're having those conversations, once again, it's not that I don't care. I might remember little things here and there.
Yeah.
But usually when I'm not going to sit here and say guys talk, because obviously I talk with guys more than I do. But usually we're just shooting the shit. Like nothing important. If there was something of importance, like, hey, my wife is pregnant, I'll remember that.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it probably also depends for you who it is. Is it someone who is very close to you? You know? I mean,
Uh,
no? Okay.
no, I mean, yes. I really listen. I try to remember. I'm not going to say I remember everything that you tell me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, people that you know, love and I very care about their opinions, it is important to them to remember stuff.
Yeah.
But if I'm just shooting with somebody, yeah, I'm not going to remember as soon as I get in the car and start driving.
Yeah.
I was like, I had a really good time. Couldn't tell you a single we talked about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, going back to how, this whole partnership of HSP and non-HSP works best is, how was that for you, if you can remember? Because
mhm,
I know and I'm saying not because you don't have a good memory. I'm saying that because it was such an evolution that it's hard to pinpoint a certain time.
mhm.
But do you maybe remember when things shifted to the point where I was better in communicating those with you because I found out that, oh wait, I'm not weird. This is just a certain trait that I have. It has a name, and now I can name those things, and now I'm able to explain it to you, my partner in crime, who goes with me to a lot of those events, on why sometimes it's just too much. Or, when we started to have conversations about, okay, it would really help me if we would do a game plan before we go somewhere.
Mhm.
What's the time frame? Can we go home at a certain time and I don't have to give you an explanation or pull you aside and beg that we please can go home or whatever? You know that, I don't know, 9 p.m. is the time when we need to find each other at that party and reassess. Is it still 9:30 that we're going home, or is it not? You know? Um,
I can't remember like a specific boom. This is it. I remember more in our younger years where you're like, hey, I want to go home.
mm,
And you wouldn't really give an example. And I didn't want to go. And
mm,
I was probably kind of a jerk about it. Like, oh, well, I think we went through a rough patch about that
mm,
part where, hey, you're ready to go home at 8 o'clock. And I'm like, it's 8 o'clock. We just got here 2 hours ago. It's, a little longer. Um, but I think I guess once we both realized that we had to communicate better, I didn't understand your feelings, and you felt that because you weren't explaining it in a way I could understand,
mm,
and I'm just assuming you felt I just didn't care about you or
mm,
your feelings. That's why you wouldn't tell me that. I think that's the hardest hurdle to get over.
mm,
Is one of you have to be like, okay, we have to sit down and we have to talk.
mhm,
This is my feelings. This is why I do what I do. And once we did that, I think it was more understanding. So we'll have a time. Okay, 9 o'clock, we're out here. 9 o'clock, we're out. Hey, if I say something like, you know, children are hungry, then that trumps 9 o'clock, even if it's 7 o'clock. We're leaving.
mm,
For whatever, something happened. Don't want to talk about it now. We'll talk about it in the car.
mhm,
So I think that once we established that and we both followed the rules, and when I say both, mostly probably me, started following those rules, that's where it got really good. That's where, you were able to open up to me because you felt you could trust me more.
yeah,
And I started understanding, okay, well, it's not just that she's a party pooper, you know,
yeah,
it's that she is overstimulated. She has these feelings. Once again, I don't understand them. I don't have them.
mm,
So I can't think of one point, but I do remember where gradually everything's just started clicking and getting better in our relationship.
yeah,
Um, because if you don't, it can damage your relationship. It can destroy it at one. It
yeah,
literally can destroy your relationship.
yeah,
So once communication is the key, but you both have to be able to willing to listen. As for a non-HSP, I have to understand that those are your feelings,
yeah,
not mine.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, and that's why it's so important for HSPs to learn how how to even put that in words, because again, when your brain is overloaded and so many things happen, it's really actually, it's so hard to mindfully try to pause and go through on what just happened. Why do I feel so drained? Why am I so tired? Well, yeah, because I had 25,000 impressions that needed to process in my brain, where your brain has this massive filter that doesn't even let it go in, you know? But like I said, when we are gone from somewhere, I can tell you the freaking color of the ceiling because I realized everything. And the other thing is too, what I have learned is, and this might be helpful for people, even if you do have that communication, let's say you're like super team about this, right? You're the dream team. And you already say, hey, listen, we're going to this event and 9 o'clock, I would like to go home. Let's just recoup at 9 o'clock and find each other in case you get separated, whatever. That's all cute and giddy, but sometimes you go somewhere and immediately you go, that's not how I envisioned this.
And that's why we had that keyword, that phrase.
Yes.
Yep.
That keyword, or sometimes I just have to look at you. And I think we're actually to a point where you even know when we go somewhere and you don't even have to look at me. You know, like, this is going to suck for her. She's not going to like this, you know? So then you have to recoup. And sometimes you go somewhere and you think, oh, this is nice. This is nicer than I envisioned it. And you start to have a good time. And you go, we can stay a little longer. It's okay. That happens too.
With that being said, though, the HSP person is the one that says that.
Yeah.
So, like, if me and you were to go out, I'm not going to be like, hey, let's stay a little longer.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, well, I don't want to be this mean wife and my husband's having such a good time. So
Right.
I'm going to sacrifice my well-being for him. And that's not fair to you.
Yeah.
It's not fair to me. It's not fair to you.
You can check in a different way.
Yes. So as the non-HSP, when you have a hard time, you can come up to them and say, hey, you ready to go? It's 9 o'clock. And then, ask them. But you don't want to be like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. Do we really have to go? It's all like that, And I think one thing that would really help, and which I don't think we did, but thinking back on it is, start off small.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to a huge party with 20 people.
Yeah.
Invite a couple to your house.
Yeah.
If you have kids, invite a couple that has kids. I think one of the biggest things too is to find couples that you both get along with.
Yeah.
Because once again, for me, we can go out to your friend's house, and me being me, I just don't care. I can just get along with anybody.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, hey, let's go to this person's house, and you're just like, oh, I can't stand it. They're whatever the case may be. That's where you got to communicate more. And I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
I have friends that you don't get along with. You got friends that I don't get along with, right? But because of that, I'll be like, all right, cool. We're going to go. We're going to go with you. I'm going to go with you to your friend's house. But hey, 2 hours.
Yeah.
And same with you. All right, he's gone with me to see my friend. It's my turn to sacrifice for a little bit for him. But once again, you have to have those boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is too, I think where it gets really interesting, and we had that, actually had that situation one time. We went out in a group and I wasn't the only HSP in that group. And it was a Mexican restaurant and we got into that restaurant. It was the noise level in that restaurant was off the charts. And it was beautiful, but it was very colorful. There was so much going on. There was music and people and the bar. I think somebody should tell them that nobody can have a conversation in that place.
I remember that.
But I remember the entire table knowing this is not a good spot for X and Z over there for these two people, and me being one of those. And I just looked at my friend and said, is that too loud for you? Yeah, that's too loud for you, isn't it? Like, yeah, this is crazy. And then you just make a decision. By the time we got to that point, we already ordered the food. So we kind of like endured that. But afterwards, both her and I needed to put noise canceling headphones on and go home and just be in our closet for like 30 minutes. And it really is. My ears are ringing, you know. Sometimes I think like maybe I have some side of tinnitus, but it's not. It is just when I'm overstimulated that I have that. Or extremely stressed, which usually the stress comes from being overstimulated. So it is incredible what that does to someone and how that can really deplete someone's capacity, just the
Oh, yeah.
capacity. Because afterwards, for me, I have no more patience. I'm short with people. I get easily aggravated. I don't even want to be touched anymore because that's another just a sense of mine that goes off. Like I need almost like to be in a sensory deprivation tank. That's what I need. I need that for my house. But now we are in a place where I actually don't need that tank anymore because we don't let it get to that point most of the time. I mean, sometimes you can't help it, but most of the time you can work together and support each other.
Absolutely. Well, it goes back once again to communication too, because I remember, back in the early years when you were overstimulating, like, don't touch me, don't talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm like, well, what the heck did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to rack my brain on something. Okay, did I say something? Did I, what did I do? I didn't do anything. We just had dinner. I don't
Yeah.
understand. But once you started communicating with me, I was like, okay, so it was nothing that I did.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so, we're not going out. We're not going to go out to eat because every time we go out to eat, I do something wrong.
Yeah.
So we're just not going to go out to eat no more. Well, that's not the answer,
Yeah.
And so and I think we're just going to keep circling back to this communication thing. Even if you're not an HSP, with somebody that you care about and you love, you don't want to hurt them. So if you don't know what's going on, I think it's more human instinct to be like, well, what did I do? I
Yeah.
must have. My wife doesn't want me to touch her.
Yeah.
What did I do?
Yeah.
And so that once again, that can destroy
Yeah.
relationships.
And to throw another wrench in the system, for a lot of HSPs, you don't realize what is happening until it's too late because you are so busy processing and still trying to be polite and be in the middle of the conversation while there is 1,000 other things going on that you cannot pull the brake because you don't know. You're too busy with all the stimuli going on and processing those and trying to keep up with that information flow that you do not have the capacity to say, okay, stop, we need to stop everything. This is stressful. We need to remove ourselves from that situation somehow or signal that to our partner or whatever. And it's afterwards, sometimes you're like, why do I have, oh yeah. Unfortunately, I think having those experiences, the bad ones, will help you to become more prepared and to be better in a place where you can think about it, where you're not yet right in the middle of it in that chaos, right? Because it's just chaos for you at this point. Um, and we always want the best for our partners. I don't want you to be in a situation that's triggering for you, being a veteran where whatever, it's like, okay, we're not doing that. We're not going there. We're not going to this. I don't know. I mean, right now you're good, but 15 years ago, I wouldn't have taken you to some fireworks show or whatever. Why would I do that? So it's a give and a take. And also being okay with sometimes where I'm telling you, go to the guy's party, go do that thing, go to that barbecue, go do that whatever, and I'm staying home. And it's not because I don't want to go with you. It is just because I want to be a better person when you come home instead of completely depleted for the next 24 hours.
And there's situations too where we do something, we take two vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you're like, hey,
I'm leaving
I have to
early.
go. You stay, you have fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave, and that works out where I get to hang out with my friends a little longer, hang out with them, get my social butterfly out of me. But not only do you get to leave the situation before it gets bad, but then that gives you time to be by yourself at home, enjoying the quiet and getting your mind right. So then when I do come back home, you're not like, don't touch me.
Yeah.
I don't want you to touch me.
Yeah.
You're back to where, like, okay, hey, you're home. I've had my fill of social butterfly. You've had your fill of peace and quiet.
Yeah.
Now we can just keep going, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's recap this a little bit.
Hmm.
Number one, and probably the most important thing,
Communication.
communication.
Yep.
Yes. Cannot stress this enough. I think that's always the answer, though.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it
the
doesn't hurt.
it's the answer to everything. It's
Yeah.
communication.
But
um,
you both got to, you both got to be willing to, especially as the non-HSP, you have to be willing to not understand something, but
yes.
understand it.
Yes. It's funny. I wanted to just say that as number two. You do not have to understand it to respect it.
Yeah.
Yes. Communicate, respect it, even if this is not something where you don't know how that feels like. That's okay. Um, and I think the other thing is too, and that's more for the HSP, if you don't know how to explain it, try. Just try. Just humor the other person. You might think they don't know what you're talking about, and that's okay. And you can even say that. You can say, like, I don't know how to explain this to you, but this just doesn't feel good. And it takes energy away from me. And I need more of a break. I need you to, be on my side here. And I need you to be my partner in crime. And I think the other thing is, as a number four, I would say, like what you said, make a plan. Have a plan in place, like what you just said, two different vehicles, set a time, have a safe word. We actually do that. After a while, you don't need a safe word anymore. You just look at the other person and or you are in the situation. You're like, okay, I know that this is not good for my spouse or partner.
Yeah, and that's when it's a good thing in that situation where if we go somewhere, I'll come up to you and be like, "Hey, are you okay?" Because now you feel that I have your best interest in mind,
Yeah,
which I do.
yeah,
I'm not saying I'm faking it,
yeah,
but that gives you the sense where, okay, my husband is trying to protect me from a situation that he knows is, and I might be wrong. There's times where like, no, I'm good,
yeah,
everything's great, and then there's times where like, yeah, you know what, you're right. I didn't want to be, we said 9 o'clock, but it's only 7:30.
yeah,
But yeah, let's get out of here.
yeah,
So, yep.
yeah. Um, Taking note and inventory afterwards, after the event or whatever situation occurred where it's more acute, where you can say how did that feel, so you get you get an idea on the threshold of a person. Now with HSP women, I have to say, and this is, don't get me wrong, we're not trying to blame everything on hormones here, because I do not believe in that. However, I know that when you are on a certain time in your cycle, you're more heightened with your senses and you're more sensitive anyway. And that has nothing to do with an HSP, but it's another layer on top of the HSP stuff. So you're even more sensitive to things. So I know that the week, like right in the beginning of my menstrual cycle, I will be even more overly stimulated. Like the other day when when it was my first day and I went to get a massage. Remember?
Hmm.
It was awful. It was absolutely the worst experience of touch, of having the worst massage ever. Not blaming the person who gave me them. It was just not the right time.
Hmm.
It was I Nothing felt good. Nothing. And it wasn't the one that, oh, it's the good hurt when you get, no, that's not what it was. It was just like, do not touch me right now. Why am I here? Why am I paying you for this? Um, so that can add another layer to that. Again, you just need to communicate about it.
Hmm.
It's not like, hey, I'm not some raging B word because of this. No, I am just, everything feels so intense right now that when something feels not even bad, but just not pleasant, it is unbearably pleasant, where 2 weeks later it's like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I think too that, once again, I am not an HSP, but from a male's perspective,
Hmm.
I could foresee, and if somebody wants to comment underneath, and if I'm dead wrong, that please do. But I would assume that a man that's HSP would feel less masculine because of that. So he would be more prone not to
talk about it.
talk about it more, which once again,
because it's a stigma.
and you know, I'll share an example with me. When I was in the military, I had PTSD, and you know, she made me go to counseling. I didn't want to. I was like, I'm fine. She's like, you're not. Best thing that ever happened to me. But I had to know that there was something wrong with me. HSPs, there's nothing wrong with you. I'm not saying there is. I'm not trying to compare the two, but understand that there is nothing wrong with you. And if you're with somebody that you're married to or you love and you care about, they should love and care about you and understand your feelings. So just because you have it as a male does not make you less of a man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a stigma about this equals weakness, and which I'm saying also to any HSP, no matter if you're a guy or if you're a gal, you need respected and not look at it as, like you said, a bad thing. Something was wrong with you. This is a weakness. You're not normal. Whatever you want to label it. That's not it. That's not it. There's I don't know. I think this is a very solid part of humanity. And we are needed. These people with that high of an empathetic state and that high of attentiveness and kind of like a sixth sense and whatever you want to call it. That's a superpower. We need those people in our lives. And then we need people like you who are just more, who ground us. It's a yin and yang. It's just that energy that needs to play with each other. So I am now, after being for many, many decades on this earth, now in a space where I can respect to be an HSP and I know how to handle it. And I'm still learning about it. It's always an evolving thing. But I don't look at it anymore as something that's weird or that is in a negative way the opposite of you. Now I know it's a positive way that I'm the opposite of you. That's our magnetism, right? You can't
Opposites attract.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And like you said, I think that's good that you talked about that. That's not taking away from masculinity or it's not a weakness or whatever, So, yeah, I appreciate that. All right. Well, I hope this was insightful. Communicate, 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 communicate with each other. And I love how we are doing this now. I mean, it was a long learning curve. It was a long learning curve. I think it probably took us 10 years to figure this out.
If more.
I don't think that this is a very recent thing for us.
Well, I think we're still learning.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's still, like you said, I ground you, but you also ground me. I mean, there's times where you're like, hey, you were kind of an ass. You might want to go apologize to your friend. And I'm like, ugh, okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it's again, I see that yin and yang sign in front of me and that beautiful symbiosis that it makes once it's together, yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for being here, DJ. That was great. All right, y'all. See you next week.
See you.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed. You can give it a thumbs up. You can give it a review. You can share it with somebody you think might resonate with this. Have a great day. See you next time.